All right, got it all set up. Here goes nothing. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, I apologize. I haven't been able to put a lot of videos up lately. I've been slammed at work. I've been traveling for work, but that's just how it is. Work always comes first. But the owner of this P200 has asked if I can have it ready for Raduno. If you guys don't know what Raduno is, that is actually Vespa Club of DC's annual rally. Raduno actually stands for rally in Italian, and it takes place at the end of September. So if you guys are in the area, make sure you go and check it out. I think registration closes pretty soon, so make sure you register before you go. But anyways, we're back on this build today, and I spent a good couple days actually cleaning the cases up. That case half, and also this case half. All the little parts down there, you know, all the grease off of them. So on the case halves, I already have the bearings installed. The outer race of the fly side bearing on that side, the output shaft bearing, and then the clutch side bearing on this case half. So these two are ready to go almost. So today I'm going to focus on the little parts that not too many people talk about, which is replacing the inner race of the crank right here, replacing the cruciform in the gear stack, rebuilding the Cush drive, and also rebuilding the clutch. So yeah, guys, if you're ready, let's get to it. First thing we're going to do is remove this inner race on the fly side bearing, the crank. So typically when I go to reinstall a new race, I would leave a 1mm gap between this race and the actual crank surface itself. And that is so that usually I would use this tool to remove it if that 1mm gap was there, but whoever installed this one didn't leave a gap there, so I gotta get creative with this automotive tool to get it off. But the way that works is that, so this is the inner race, this is the new one. So the tool has a 1mm lip right here, and usually it would go right between the race and the crank itself. And then you put this side on, slip this little sleeve over, slip that other collar over, it'll lock that tool in place, and you can turn the center bolt, and it'll slowly pull the bearing off. But like I said, whoever installed this one did not leave a gap for me, so I'm using an automotive puller. This is a kit that you can get from, say, Harbor Freight or wherever, Amazon. But they use these to pull like pulleys off, power, you know, steering wheels, stuff like that. Just a universal puller. So hopefully this will work. I haven't actually tried to do it on this one yet, but we'll see. So I have it all set up. These two parts are kind of in the space between the inner race and the actual crank right now. Hopefully it's enough area for it to grab. And then now I'm going to tighten down on this bolt, and hopefully it'll pull the inner race off. All right, got it all set up. Here goes nothing. Yeah, that didn't work. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. This gap right here between the inner race and the crank is non-existent. So I'm gonna go with a bigger jaw this time and see if that'll do it. So let me get this set up again, and we'll see if this bigger one works. All right, we got the bigger one set up this time, so hopefully I get better luck with this one. And I did. All right, great. Cool, there you go. Now that I have the old inner race off, I have a 1mm spacer. This is a tool you can actually get from Scooter Mercado. So this is the new race. I'm going to hit it with a heat gun for a little while, and then it should just drop right on. But if it doesn't drop on, you need something like this. That'll go over the crank so you can actually tap it into place. All right, let's try it. Almost there. So before you tap on this thing, make sure you get a wedge for over here, the opening on this side of the crank. So again, I have my little thing over here. We'll try to tap it on real quick. All right, see, I left the 1mm gap there. So next time I do this, I can use my tool. Okay, now that we got the crank all situated, first thing you need to do is disassemble the gear stack, which is held together with this snap ring here. So remove the snap ring. Okay, like that. Your shoulder washer after that. This is going to be your first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Make sure you keep that stack exactly the way it is, and when you go to reinstall everything, just do it in the reverse order. So this is typically how it looks. As you can see, the cruciform there is actually really worn out. So that's why we are going to be replacing it today. So let me go grab some tools, and then we'll get this shaft off real quick, and then we'll put a new cruciform in it. All right, tools you're going to need: 13mm open-ended wrench and a screwdriver. So the screwdriver is here, so you can keep the output shaft from rotating when you're trying to turn the shaft to get it off. So this shaft is actually reverse thread, so that means clockwise we'll get it off. Okay, so just like that. There was a spacer underneath right here. Make sure you don't lose that. So the cruciform, all you need to do is spin it to get it out. Like that, okay? So make sure this is in the proper orientation when you go to install it, all right? So you got this little protruding area that's facing down, flat area goes against the shaft, okay? So here's the new cruciform. You can see it's not worn out like the old one. So we'll go ahead and reinstall this guy, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to thread this guy onto here before we actually put it into the output shaft. That way we make sure the threads are still good on this shaft. All right. Since the cruciform is new, sometimes it's very hard to get this thing on, so that's why you do it outside of the output shaft, just to make sure everything is still good with the threads. Okay, so now that's good, we'll go ahead and install it into the output shaft. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is put this thing into the output shaft. So it goes like this. Once you get it in there, you spin it and lay it flat. Again, it's this flat surface that faces up. The protruding area faces down, okay? All right, so we'll reinstall the shaft. So there's a washer that goes on the bottom here. That little, I guess, tapered end right there goes against the shaft. We're going to put some red Loctite on the threads here. Just a dab. And then we'll go ahead and install it. You can lift the cruciform up to help you. And then remember, it's counterclockwise to tighten it. Okay, look in there, make sure that washer's there, which it is. After that, go ahead and just tighten it. Put your screwdriver back around. Now just give it nice, make it nice and snug, and that's it. You don't have to kill it, okay? Loctite on there. So once that's done, you're good to go. Now to reinstall the gears, I'll show you how to do it in case you just how to clean these things up and you got them all mixed up. So it's always the taller side that's facing up, okay? This is going to be fourth gear. This little lip here makes it the taller side, so we're going to face that up. Third gear, same thing, taller side facing up. And again, second gear, taller side facing up. And first gear. Unfortunately, first gear does not have a taller side, but you'll see that there are teeth inside it. So you want the space area to face down, the no space area to face up, okay? Because this space here and this space here above second gear is your neutral position. All right, so make sure you get that part right. And usually there's a little yellow dot right here that always faces up, okay? So on first gear. So yeah, if that's still there, use that. But like I said, there's no taller side. Make sure your space area is facing down, no space area facing up. Okay, once that's on there, put your shoulder washer back on, and then your snap ring. So you want to double check the tolerance between the snap ring and actual shoulder washer. Make sure it's within spec. If it's too loose, you'll need to replace that shoulder washer. Okay, so before I call this gear stack good, I'm gonna check the tolerances between the snap ring and the shoulder washer. And I'm gonna start with the minimum, which is 0.15. Now, when you put 0.15 in there, it should be somewhat loose, but somewhat dragging, okay? So this is good. I can feel it dragging. Now, obviously, if I go lower than 0.15, if that gap is small, under 0.15 and it's still dragging, then okay, your gears might be a little tight. But 0.15 shims and is making contact, and that's just good to go. Hope that makes sense. But now I'm going to check the maximum, which is 0.40. If 0.40s fit in there, it's okay. But they have to drag a little bit. If 0.40 fits in there and there's no drag at all, that means that gap is way too big. Okay, so 0.40. Yeah, it's not even. Yeah, they're not even fitting in there. Okay, so I know that gap is under 0.40 and still touching when I put the 0.15s in there. So which is good. Okay, if I put the 0.15s in there and it was really tight, like I said, your shoulder washer needs to be changed to a thinner one. But this is good to go. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is rebuild the clutch, because I'm gonna save the Cush drive for last, because that's a pain in the butt. So to do this, you need new springs, a new brass bushing, new brass washer, and new corks. I'm gonna reuse the plates in this thing, because you rarely have to replace those. Usually I replace them if the clutch is burnt to a crisp and they smell a little toasty. So that's when I replace them. But other than that, you should just be able to clean them off and then reuse the plates. So first thing we're going to do is put my clutch compressor on. Just like this. Put the nut into the vise. 22mm socket. Tighten that bolt down. It'll compress the clutch, as you can see. Remove the retaining ring, and then remove these corks. These look really old. So like I said, I'm gonna reuse the plates because these look good. Corks I'll replace. Yep, looks good. Corks. No good. So usually they say if this bushing is really loose, like this, you need to replace it. It's supposed to be tight around this collar. And you have your little brass washer on the bottom here. So this is kind of weird. Actually, this is supposed to go over. So I guess I need to undo it to undo the springs, and then make sure I put that back on before I tighten it again. So underneath this thing is all your springs right there. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is make sure this goes, no, not that one, but this guy here, the new one, goes over this nice and snug. Feels like it's pretty snug. I'm going to tap this on with a plastic hammer, nice and evenly. Okay, that's good. Alright, so now that I have a new brass bushing here, I'm going to make sure this thing spins on it, because if not, you may have to sand it down a tad. Yeah, it's a little tight. All right, I'm gonna take a little piece of Scotch pad, and I'm going to take the surface down a little bit just so this gets on there a little easier, because right now it's really hard. All right, I've actually been at this for a good 5 minutes, and I'm sanding the entire thing down. It's still tight on the bottom here. I'm guessing this thing is just machined wrong, so I need to just try to get that little tiny spot right there down a little bit so this guy can slip over and spin freely. Right now it's really tight. I always have problems with these things. It's either too tight on the inside or now it's too tight on the outside. So you always have to make adjustments to them. But as long as this thing is tight around this thing, you should be okay. Like I said, just do slight adjustments until it can fit. This thing can fit over it and spin freely. All right, after a good 10 minutes of working that brass collar, I finally got it over it. So it's nice and snug. I'm gonna let it work itself out. It'll probably be a lot better once it gets lubricated. So my main concern was actually this part going over the brass bushing, because if it didn't, this won't move, and this has to move like this. Okay, so now that I have this situation all figured out, what we want to do is replace the springs. So I have the basket just hanging out right here. This stuff is kind of loose, so be careful with it. If you place this on something flat, it'll push those cups up, so it's really hard to line the springs up. So you kind of have to suspend it like this. So we'll remove all 7 springs. Replace them with new stuff. 7 springs gone. So I got 7 brand new springs. Okay. Now you want to clock this thing so that these little holes here line up with the springs, because if they're not right, then they're not actually sitting in the holes correctly, and the clutch won't work properly. So make sure you spin this around, see how it's not clocked the correct way right now. I gotta spin it until it does look right. And I think that's it. Let me see here. Turn it around. Okay, they look pretty good. Let me tighten this guy onto the vise, and then I'll actually make sure they stay that way when we go to load the clutch plates. Actually, before I do that, so let's go ahead and assemble this, sort of. Put the brass washer down, put this little guy down, and then tighten this guy together, all while trying to keep those springs in place. Okay. So you want to look in there and make sure the spring, like I said, is in both the bottom cup and the top little recessed area on the, I guess, is the pressure plate. If not, you'll have to stick a screwdriver in there and move them around until they actually snap into the recessed spots, cups, so to speak. So that one might not be. Yep. Okay. Now the spring is in this cup and also in that little recessed spot here. I won't call that a cup, but everything looks like it's lined up. Now we can go ahead and tighten it more to load the plates. Okay, as far as the clutch plates, I've had these soaking in here for a good couple hours now. You can soak them overnight. I never do. I just do it this way. Usually pretty good. I never had any issues with it. So, yeah, they look pretty soaked. So, first thing we're going to do is tighten this bolt down so that it'll compress the springs. Like that. Next thing we'll do is load the clutch plate. The first one has corks on both sides, then a plate, cork, double-sided, plate, and And this cork only has cork material on one side, so you know this is the end. So line this guy up. Sometimes these are hard to get on. You have to actually sit there and file these little teeth a little bit to get them in place, but this one seemed to be okay. Snap right in. Next thing is the retaining ring, which is this guy here. Reinstall that. Doesn't really matter which way it goes, I don't think. I believe it was like this. I like to put the opening of the retaining ring where it's closed off. I don't know if that really matters, but it just makes me feel better, so that's how I do it. Okay, so that's how you assemble the clutch entirely with all new brass bushing and the brass washer, new springs, new plates, well, not new plates, new corks. This guy is ready to be reinstalled. All right, so now we have to do my least favorite part of a build is rebuild this Cush drive. Usually you can tell if it needs to be replaced by shaking it. If the springs in there are broken, you'll hear it rattling around. But this bike has over 10,000 miles on it, so I want to go ahead and rebuild this because I don't want any problems later on. So the first thing I need to do is remove this snap ring here. Okay, so this shaft here, get 2 pieces of wood like this, and you're going to try to tap the shaft out, and that shaft will push this bearing out because we're going to be replacing that as well. Okay, new one of those bearings. This guy, we're gonna clean that up a little bit. It's got dry grease on it, but that's how you get the shaft out. So next thing I'm gonna do, center punch these rivets that go all the way around, because we have to drill them out in order to get those plates off. You can't simply shave the heads off because these rivets have been smashed in there, so they expanded in the actual gear. So, like I said, you can't just cut the head off or drill the head off and it'll just fall right out. That's not the way it works. So, you have to drill halfway down into the gear before the rivet will come out. So, I use a 1/8 inch drill bit. Get a brand new one because you're going to need it. Now, I've done it with a hand drill before, but it was a pain in the butt. I just could not hold pressure evenly enough, and I couldn't hold the bit straight enough, so it just took forever to do it. So I picked myself a nice $60 Harbor Freight drill press, and this thing has actually been great. It cuts the drilling time in half. All right, I don't have a brand new 80th drill bit, but I have 3 used one to choose from. So I guess I'll pick the one that looks the sharpest, and we'll try it. If it's a pain in the butt, I'm gonna go get a new drill bit. Alright, so I've done this a few times, so I kind of know the feel of whether I'm drilling into a rivet or the actual gear. The gear takes a lot more pressure to drill through. So, like I said, get yourself a new drill bit, and then slowly drill down, and you'll feel it cutting into the rivet rather than the gear itself. Okay, so that was a lot harder than it really had to be, simply because I didn't feel like going out to get a new drill bit. But I got all the rivets drilled out. Now, to rebuild this thing, you obviously need a rebuild kit, which is this guy. So it comes with all your springs and your covers for the front and rear, and also the rivets. So first thing I'm gonna do is pop these springs out. See, there's a spring inside the outer spring. After that, this guy is 2 pieces, okay? So when you go to reassemble this guy, make sure this gear is not like this, because if you do this, they may go back together, but on this other side, the actual Christmas tree is not flush with the gear. So when you put the cover on, it doesn't actually go back on right. So make sure you line it back up to where the Christmas tree is actually flush with the gear. So spin it back around, you'll see the difference. If I can get this thing to line up again. There you go. When it's lined up, the Christmas tree and the gear will be flush on the back. Okay? Alright, so let's open up this kit and see what we got. Alright, as I said, comes with the new springs, inner and outer, and all the rivets. Okay? So first thing you want to do is squeeze the springs into these openings on the Cush drive and the between the gears, actually. Those inner and outer. Squeeze this guy and just kind of set it in there. I haven't done this in a while, so bear with me. Just like that. Okay, do that all the way around. Okay, I've got all the inner and outer springs all situated into the Cush drive. Now we can go ahead and cover it back up. So the flat plate goes at the bottom like this. All right, the plate with the bulge goes on the top like this. Bulge is for clearing the springs, so that's how it would look. Alright, so you can push these springs all the way up flat. Okay. Like that. So go ahead and put a rivet in every single one of them, because if you do one by one, by the time you get to the end, that last rivet may not line up. So you kind of have to do this with all the rivets in each spot. Or when you go to mash these little pins down, just do them kind of loose so you can have some play, and you can move the plates and the rivets around so they all line up. So start with this one over here. That one's in. Let's do the other one. Start with the flat side, but you're supposed to use the ball peen hammer to do this, which is what this is, but this is a really small one. You gotta be patient. I don't have the factory machine to do this and make it all nice and neat, so this is what we got. Okay, so I have everything all kind of assembled. I have all the rivets started, all lined up. So the next thing I need to do is mash these guys flat. Now, somebody commented on one of my last videos saying, oh, you're not supposed to mash them flat. You know, you're supposed to round them off. It's for the ball peen hammer. Well, this is not an airplane panel. This is actually going inside the engine. And if you don't mash these guys flat, when this thing spins, these rivet heads hit the clutch side crank bearing. So you don't want it to do that. So that's why the factory mashes these completely flat, so it clears everything properly. All right, so like I said, I'm going to do that with this guy, and then we should be good. All right, I've got all the rivets flattened out on the Cush drive, so this is good to go. Next thing I'm gonna do is replace the bearing with a new one right here. So before I begin, you're gonna put the shaft in like this. It's gonna sit there, and you'll put the bearing in. Set this in your vise. Okay, so move it around so that the bulge of that cover is not on the vise jaws here. Okay, after that, you just tap this bearing on. Almost there. Okay, like that. Okay, I just spent a few minutes cleaning out the groove for the snap ring. For some strange reason, there's a lot of gunk in there. Probably a good idea if you do not install the bearing until you clean that groove out. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is put the snap ring in place. There you go, that's it. So I left this thing loose because it has to be loose for you to reinstall it into the case. All right, that's why I didn't install the bearing over this shaft and then install the entire thing in there, because you'll have to knock it back out of the bearing anyway. All right, so that was the last part of our 3 major internal engine components that had to be rebuilt or refreshed. With that being said, now we can go ahead and assemble the engine. Again, I'm not going to get too detailed as far as engine assembly in this video. I already have 2 very detailed videos of how to do that, so make sure you check those out if you haven't already. But yeah, let's get to building this motor. All right, as you can see, I've got both case halves together. Did a function check with the Kickstarter. Seems to be resetting just fine. Now I have to bolt everything back together with this big pile of hardware I just put in my parts washer to get all the grease and grime off. So actually it's pretty sad, but I actually know where every single one of these screws go. So yeah, let's continue getting this motor back together. got the case completely bolted back together, all torqued down properly. Function check. Kickstart still works and resets. We are good. Next up, we'll put the cylinder back on. Okay, I've got the cylinder completely bolted back on. New gasket. I also have Yambon 4 on the base gasket, and also Yambon 4 on the surface of the cylinder head. I always use it because the one time I didn't, the cylinder leaked right at the base. So I've been using it ever since. I've never had a problem. So that's how I do it. So anyways, now we're going to move on to the rear brake assembly stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put that back together, and we'll do the clutch, and this side will be done. Alright, there you have it. The rear brake component is all installed. I have a new hub seal installed as well. So before I put the rear hub on, I'm going to go ahead and put the clutch in, and I'm going to rebuild the clutch cover as well, and get all that done, and then we can move on to the other side. Alright, so I have the clutch cover all taken apart, actually blasted it, and looks about the same finish as the case. So I went ahead and replaced the O-ring here on the little arm here, and then I replaced the actual giant ring here. So now we can go ahead and put it all back together. Alright, I got the clutch cover fully rebuilt. That's how it's supposed to work. I got a new brass plunger here. So this arm moves, plunger pushes up against the pressure plate, and disengages the clutch. So this is good to go. I'll go ahead and put this back on the case. Alright, before I put the clutch cover back on, I need to reinstall all of the oil injection stuff and also the clutch. So I have new hardware here, the clutch is fully rebuilt, and yeah, let's get that done. Alright, I have this side of the motor completely put back together with the exception of the carb box. I usually do that afterwards once the motor is actually hung into the frame, because with the carb box in the way, it makes it a little more difficult to actually swivel it into place. So That's why I do that after it's been hung. But like I said, this side is done. Let's move on to the other side. Alrighty, as you can see, I got the motor pretty much completely rebuilt and reassembled. I have the shrouds off of it right now because I don't usually put those on until I have the motor hung into the frame. So, like I said in the last video, I'm going to keep the series as short and sweet as possible. So, in the next video, I'm going to be cleaning up the frame. I'm going to replace the obvious stuff, hang the motor back in, reattach everything, and hopefully we can fire it up. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have enjoyed these videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all next time.